Once upon a time, in a small village nestled at the edge of a vast, dense forest, there lived a curious little girl named Eliza. With her long dark hair that danced in the wind and bright, inquisitive eyes, she was known for her adventurous spirit. Every day after school, she would explore the meadows, climb trees, and collect wildflowers, but the forest had always been a place she was warned to avoid. "Stay away from the whispering woods," the villagers would say. "It is cursed, and many who enter never return." Eliza had heard the stories of lost children and eerie voices that echoed among the trees. But as time passed, her curiosity grew stronger than her fear. One crisp autumn afternoon, on her way back from a picnic with her friends, she took a detour towards the edge of the forest. The golden leaves rustled enticingly, and the sunlight filtered through the branches like golden tendrils urging her onward. As her feet crossed the invisible line that separated safety from peril, she felt a thrill coursing through her. Once inside, the atmosphere changed. The vibrant colors of the outside world quickly faded, replaced by an eerie dimness. The trees loomed tall and ancient, their gnarled roots and branches forming twisted shapes. With every step deeper into the woods, an unsettling silence enveloped her, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves. Eliza wandered further, captivated by the beauty of the golden and crimson foliage. She picked up acorns and admired the shapes of mushrooms that dotted the ground. Time lost its meaning as she ventured deeper, the sunlight waning until only faint rays broke through the thick canopy. Suddenly, she realized how far she had strayed from the trail. Panic began to swirl in her chest like a storm. "I should turn back," she muttered to herself, but the path she had taken seemed to twist and turn, like a serpentine beast, leading her further into the heart of the forest. As Eliza retraced her steps, something strange began to happen. She heard whispers. Soft, low murmurs carried on the wind like a melody that beckoned her closer. "Eliza, Eliza." The voice was sweet yet haunting, wrapping around her like tendrils of mist. "Hello," she called out, her voice echoing eerily through the trees. Silence fell, thick and oppressive. Then, as if in answer, the whispers returned, more insistent, urging her to come closer. Against her better judgment, she followed the sound, thinking perhaps it was another lost child who needed help. The further she walked, the deeper the whispers intensified, weaving through the branches like a spell. "Eliza, come play with us. Forever." A chill crept down her spine as she stumbled into a small clearing. In the center, she saw a group of shadowy figures, their faces obscured, swaying gently as if caught in a trance. "Who are you?" she stammered, backing away, fear pooling in her stomach. The figures turned towards her, their eyes glowing faintly in the shadows, and the whispers grew louder, echoing in her mind. "Join us, Eliza. Leave the world behind." A cold breeze swept through the clearing, carrying the scent of damp earth and decay. Eliza felt her heart race as realization dawned on her. These were not just shadows, they were lost souls, children like her, trapped in the forest's sinister embrace. Her instincts kicked in and she turned to run, but the forest twisted around her. The trees seemed to shift and rearrange, closing off her escape. The whispers transformed into a cacophony of pleas and laughter, their voices melding into a chilling chorus. "Stay with us. Never leave." Desperation fueled her speed as she darted through the thickets, branches clawing at her clothes and skin. The forest was alive, watching, waiting. With every step, shadows chased her, whispering her name, drawing her deeper into the darkness. As night fell, the forest glowed with an otherworldly light, the shadows merging to form a path. Eliza stumbled upon a silver stream, its surface reflecting the moonlight like shards of glass. With a flicker of hope, she dashed towards it, believing it to be a sign of freedom. But as she reached the water's edge, a haunting figure emerged from the depths, a ghostly girl, her hair flowing like ethereal ribbons. "You cannot escape, Eliza. This forest feeds on your fear. You are one of us now." Terror filled Eliza as she gazed into the girl's empty eyes, feeling the pull of the shadows. She remembered her home, her family, the warmth of the village, and knew she had to resist. Summoning every ounce of courage, she shouted, "No, I will not stay." With those words, a blinding light surged from within her. The whispers shrieked in agony, and the shadows recoiled, their hold weakening. The ghostly figure faded back into the depths, shrieking in anger and despair as Eliza stumbled backward. She threw herself into the water, feeling its cool embrace, pulling her into depths far away from the forest. As she surfaced, gasping for breath, Eliza found herself back on the edge of the dangerous woods, the dawn breaking above her. With the first light of morning, the whispers vanished, replaced by the cheerful chirping of birds and the gentle rustle of leaves. Eliza ran home, overwhelmed by relief and disbelief. She vowed never to return to the Whispering Woods, keeping the secret of her terrifying night to herself. But sometimes, late at night, she could still hear faint whispers when the wind blew through her window, reminding her of the woods that almost claimed her, and of the shadows that still lingered, waiting for another lost child to wander too far from home. It was a chilly autumn afternoon when 10-year-old Sarah wandered away from her friends. They had been playing tag at the park while the vibrant leaves crunched beneath their feet. But the moment she spotted a brightly colored balloon drifting away in the wind, her curiosity took over. She hesitated for just a moment, then broke away from the laughter of her friends to chase after it. The balloon danced away from her, teasingly out of reach, and as Sarah sprinted after it, she found herself at the edge of a dark alley. The gas lamps flickered dimly, casting unsettling shadows on the brick walls. With a determined heart, Sarah darted into the alley, her eyes fixed on the rapidly rising balloon. But the balloon climbed higher and higher, leading her to the grating of a storm drain. Instead of turning back, she knelt down, peering into the darkness below. Just a little closer, she thought, trying to catch a glimpse of the mysterious underground world. Before she knew it, Sarah had leaned too far, lost her balance, and fell into the gaping opening. As she tumbled down, the air turned damp and cold, and the sound of the world above muffled into silence. When she landed, she found herself in a narrow tunnel, with water trickling along the uneven floor. The darkness enveloped her, and her heart raced. "Hello," she called, but her voice echoed back at her, a mocking reminder of her solitude. Her first instinct was to climb back up, but the walls of the storm drain were slick and too high. She stood up and took a deep breath, her eyes adjusting slowly to the faint light filtering through the grates above. The air smelled musty, a mix of decaying leaves and something else she couldn't quite place. As she ventured deeper into the tunnel, Sarah spotted the remnants of twisted metal and old, rotting wood. It was then she noticed strange carvings on the tunnel walls, symbols that made her stomach churn with unease, depicting what looked like eyes and mouths screaming in silent terror. The echoes began again, and for a moment she thought she could hear whispers. "Help!" A soft voice echoed through the damp darkness. Her fear was quickly replaced by a flicker of hope. Perhaps there was someone else down here, someone who could guide her back to safety. "Hello?" Sarah called again, desperation creeping into her voice. "Is someone there?" The whispers grew louder, swirling around her like a chilling breeze. They seemed to emerge from the very walls, intertwining and creating an almost musical melody, a haunting lullaby that sent shivers down her spine. Suddenly, something moved in the shadows. A figure emerged. It was a boy, older than her, with hollow cheeks and wide, dark eyes that glimmered with a strange light. "You shouldn't be here," he croaked, his voice raspy as if he hadn't spoken in ages. "Please, I need to get out," Sarah exclaimed, her heart pounding wildly. "I fell in. Can you help me?" He looked at her with an intensity that sent chills down her spine. "Nobody can help you here. This place, it wants you." Confused, Sarah backed away, but the boy stepped closer, his expression twisting into something almost sad. "I was lost like you once. There are others down here." He gestured into the darkness behind him, and Sarah felt a cold wave of dread wash over her. "What do you mean? Others? Who?" "Children who chased after things they shouldn't have," he replied quietly. "We're trapped. The tunnel feeds on our fear, our loneliness. It will keep you forever. Unless..." "Unless what?" Sarah interrupted, her voice trembling. "Unless you find the way out before the darkness takes you." It was then that Sarah heard it. A low, rumbling growl vibrating through the walls, a sound like 1,000 voices crying in agony. The tunnel seemed to tremble, and the flickering light grew even dimmer. Panic surged through her, and she turned back to him. "How do I get out?" she shouted, desperation clawing at her throat. But the boy only stared at her, an expression of melancholy washing over him. "You have to face it," he murmured. "You have to let go of what you're holding on to." "No," Sarah cried, fear gripping her chest. "I want to go home." The growl echoed again, more violent this time. The tunnel seemed to close in on her, shadows pooling around her like great black hands. She turned her back on the boy and ran down the tunnel, her heart pounding, the whispers growing more frantic as she thrashed through the darkness. "Find the children," they called, the disembodied voices weaving through her thoughts. Their urgency echoed in her mind. As she ran, Sarah stumbled upon a series of doors carved into the tunnel walls, each one marked with the same twisted symbols. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, urging her to explore. She hesitated, her breath coming in ragged gasps. But something drew her in, a warm flicker of light that seeped from beneath one of the doors. Gripping the handle, she opened it. Inside, a dim room aglow with soft light waited, filled with faded photographs of children smiling. The air was thick with memories, but they felt suffocating, coating her skin like a heavy fog. In the back of the room stood an old mirror, its glass tarnished and dusty. She approached it, and the moment she looked in, her reflection shimmered and reformed into the twisted shapes of the children who had come before her. Each face wore a desperate expression, mouths whispering secrets she couldn't comprehend. They were trapped, their eyes pleading for release. The boy's warning echoed in her mind. "Let go." In that moment she understood. The darkness took hold of those who clung too fiercely to their fears and sadness. And so, with a trembling gasp, Sarah closed her eyes and allowed herself to feel the weight of all she had lost. The friends she had left behind, the laughter and simple joys of her life. When she reopened her eyes, the mirror showed her a bright light, a passage opening behind her. Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over her, as if she had finally freed herself from the shackles of despair. Taking a deep breath, she turned away from the mirror, forced open the door, and found herself back in the tunnel, the boy waiting for her. "You did it," he whispered, his expression softening. "Can I leave now?" she asked. He smiled sadly. "Yes, but remember us." As Sarah ran, the darkness began to recede, the whispers fading behind her. She sprinted towards the light that beckoned her, the world above pulling her back with hunger. In a burst of clarity, she leapt upward, feeling the cool air rush around her. With one final push, she burst through the grate, tumbling out onto the grass of the park. Disoriented, she looked around. Her friends were still playing, blissfully unaware of her absence, but as she turned back, one final whisper curled around her ears. "We'll be here, whenever you need to remember." And in that moment, beneath the surface of bright autumn leaves, she knew the darkness below would always linger, just out of sight, waiting for the day someone else would chase after the light. Sarah never spoke of her adventure, But as the nights grew darker, the echoes of the lost children haunted her dreams, a reminder of the shadows lurking beneath the world she knew.